Kramer here and Radke.
Present. Thank you. We have a full board. Before we proceed on to the next one, if you have any devices that makes noise, if you could put that on vibrate or silent, that would be greatly appreciated. With that, shall we rise for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Does any member of this board wish to add, subtract, or approve the agenda as presented?
Marv, I would like to add one item to new business. Because Tina has resigned as the deputy treasurer and I have a pending vacation coming up, I need to have Mary Jo added to the signator at Huntington Bank so we can pay our bills that become gone. So I'd like to have this added, Mary Jo to Huntington Bank.
Does that need to be board acted on? I don't
Yes,
think
sir, it does. For the board, they need to see in the minutes that we've approved that, or else
They
they're gonna
need-
change it. So therefore, we need to have it in front of the meeting.
That's at Huntington.
Just Huntington.
Okay,
She's just there short-term filling in so that I'm able to have somebody in case something happens in the interim.
very good. Everybody understand the request? Amenable to the request? Any other changes of the agenda?
We'll make a motion, we approve the agenda of the amendment of adding Mary Jo to Huntington.
Second,
We have a motion by Merrick, supported by West, to approve the agenda with the addition of Mary Jo, a signature to Huntington Bank. Any other discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is consent agenda. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will automatically be respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file or approval is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar. Is there any member of this board wishing to remove any item? Any staff? Any member of the public? Seeing none, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
We have a motion by West, supported by Merrick, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Roll call, please.
Biondo,
Yes.
West,
Yes,
Kramer, yes, Viganowski.
Yes.
Merrick,
Yes.
McDonald.
Yeah.
And Radke.
Yes. Adopted. Next item is for board action, declaration of conflict of interest. Does any board member have any conflict of interest that's listed as an item on our agenda? Seeing none, proceed on to reports. I see Deputy Nofke is here and he might be called out at any time, so sir, if you would.
Good evening. I believe all of you have received our annual statistics from our office. Speaking with you earlier, Mr. Merrick, we did have one fatality this year that was actually handled by MSP, so it doesn't show up on our Pritchard Sheriff's Office reporting numbers. One thing I'm working on right now, I should hopefully have it wrapped up this week, is a pretty significant felony fraud case involving some downstaters that have property up here. They been frauded out for 50 grand contractor. That's taken up a good portion of my time recently, trying to obtain bank records, etc. Our office also just successfully had one candidate go through the NMC Police Academy. It was the first ever 100% sponsored law enforcement academy. Now they've just started another one. I think it starts either this week or next week, but we have 2 more people going through that. So that should kind of help out our manpower issue. Yeah. So that's all I have right now. If anybody has any questions, I might have to bail given these
I do.
road conditions. Yes,
You just had one, complete your course. How long do they have to stay with the department, and do you guys guarantee them a job if they take it?
yeah, so they actually get paid going through. And it's a 16-week course through the college. It used to be the whole year, now it's condensed to half the year. I believe they have to fulfill an obligation of at least 2 years. I could be wrong on the time frame on that. If they do the part, they do have to pay that money back.
But you guarantee them a job then?
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
yep,
Because you basically hire them and then send them through the school?
yes, we're hiring in them. We already have the vacancies for it. So as soon as they're completed, after they graduate, within that week, they're already starting with us.
Okay.
And so far, it's been a pretty successful program based on what I've seen with the past recruits. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I heard Sheriff Mine say that.
Try to do that with the coaching that I do with some of the kids. See where that goes.
Any other questions? Thank you, Deputy Noffke. Have a great day. Be safe. I see our fire chief is not in attendance due to a fire on another community right adjacent to us. I anticipate his return a little later. At this point, I just want to give a little brief update. My dealings with the state park. On January 4th, we had State Representative John Roth, County Commissioner Brian McAllister, the Green Lake Township Treasurer, and myself meet with Mr. Bush, who is the manager of the Interlochen State Park. Mr. Bush gave us an update of what is happening at the state park because it's anticipated they're going to be closed all year. We sat down and met with him, and he indicated that the state awarded the Interlochen State Park Campground just a shy under $4 million to upgrade the infrastructure in there, water and sewer. There are some sewer lines in there that are crushed. And so they're going to tear it up and try to get it all done in one season. We did ask if we could delay the construction to later in the summer, perhaps, at least get some of the camping done that people enjoy there. And the issue is, or the position they've taken is they're finishing up the final engineering plans. I believe it sometime this week, and they haven't even sent it out to bid yet. So that's what we're looking at in that regards there. We did ask about the boat launches, and it was indicated that both were going to be closed. We did make a request to at least keep one of them open for at least emergency services to be able to access the lake with our boat in the event there's an issue out there. The Green Lakes rustic side will remain open this year, is not to be impacted. And the reason why some of the launches will be closed will be due to trenching for the replacement of the infrastructure. They're going to bring the day use restrooms into compliance with ADA requirements. So they're hoping to get the plan submitted as quickly, get it sent out for bids as quickly, and we did make a request if they could work later in the summer, if not early fall through the winter. There was some discussion in that regards there. Representative Roth is going to make an inquiry with the DNR to see what can be done at our request. County Commissioner did bring it up for conversation at the County Board of Commissioners to see what they could do to assist us in minimizing the complete closure of the Interlochen State Park. It's out of our hands. We have zero control. We don't have any say in that regards. But we're hoping that we've developed a working relationship to where they'll take our comments into consideration and hopefully be able to assist us, which leads to another concern, which is needed, is the MDOT update on 31 from Return to Reynolds Road. They're looking at new design, new safety enhancement, construction or safety enhancements to the drivers of the road and to the pedestrians and non-motorized. That is gonna take most of the summer next year. So they'll have a detour that goes, well, from my understanding, down here at Riley Road, you have to head south down J. Matty, turns into Carlin Road, hit Yucca Road, and head back north to Grand Corners. So that will take most of the summer. So that's gonna be an impact, and we asked, can we minimize any of the impacts to our commercial corridor, for our grocery store, for the banking and et cetera, that utilizes that area here. So we're in contact with the engineers of MDOT and their subcontracted engineers and trying to find a good solution to our lease. We can keep the east-west traffic going through interlocking corners. Doesn't sound very hopeful, but we're still pushing it. So that is with my current updates. Any other, Andy?
Oh, you and I had talked in the office today, and we've been working on trying to put together a report about what's going on with this ordinance review, because there's a lot of information out there in the public that's maybe not as accurate as it could be. There's some stuff that's being talked about that we thought would be a good idea to clear it up, since the meeting is being broadcast on YouTube, so we're open and transparent so the residents who can't attend the meeting are able to see what we as a board are doing for them. So when we're looking at the proposed, I prepared something because I don't forget anything, so bear with me as I read this. Looking at the proposed ordinance before the board tonight, and then looking at the public comments on a variety of social media posts about how the township's proposing to make the township an HOA, I had many thoughts and things that need to be cleared up for the public and possibly some board members. I spent a little time preparing this report prior to the meeting to help the public understand the process a little bit more. My first comment is if you read the proposed ordinance with a clear mind, not skewed with what's said on social media or at the coffee table or water cooler, you'll see they're not creating anything like an HOA. You may, however, see things that you may disagree with. I happen to have issue with some of the things in the proposed ordinance. We'll be discussing those at the meeting tonight or possibly a future study session. We're required by the state of Michigan to have our meetings in public at a properly posted meeting, which is part of Public Act 267 of 1967. So we've been mandated for a long time to do business with the public in the eyes of the public. This helps governments do the business, as I said, in the eyes of the public. This, however, can cause some issues when people are not aware of how township government is supposed to work and how we are governed. We have to post an agenda as prescribed by law and hold a public meeting to discuss any business the board is going to act on in a public meeting. Those meetings are typically our monthly board of trustee meetings like the one we're at here tonight. There are times we have given our staff the guidance they need to bring an item for us to look at that is ready for us to vote on and adopt at that meeting. There are other times we need to do some minor discussion on items in that proposal to make adjustments before we can approve it that evening. We also have some items that we discuss over several meetings and then send off to our legal counsel prior to us adopting. When people ask us ahead of a meeting, will this be voted on or will there be action taken on us at the meeting? None of us individual board members can even begin to guess how the other six are going to act, so we can't tell you what's going to happen at the meeting. This has caused some concern among people on social media, assuming that because an item is on the agenda, we'll be adopting it at that evening. While there's always a possibility to adopt an item on the agenda at any meeting, we cannot say prior to the meeting how board members feel about an item since we can't discuss it prior to that meeting. Unfortunately, the Open Meetings Act does cause, at times, the appearance to some that we are trying to cram something through because we've not heard anything about it until they see it on the agenda, or a heated post on social media, over a cup of coffee at a local restaurant. Other people said that the proposal we're looking at tonight should be adopted by a vote of the people in a general election. If we were to take all the business the township acts on throughout the year, prove challenging for the people to vote on them all, the ballot would be several pages long on issues like non-typical business such as ordinance proposals or amendments, etc. This is why we have a representative democracy here in the United States, to elect people like the township board to make decisions based on what we believe is the best interest of the people who we're supposed to represent. It's a delicate balancing act to make sure we're doing what's best to represent all the residents, not just those that agree with us. I hope that people will reach out to us prior to a meeting through email or phone call or stopping in the office and let us know what they would like us to do so we can properly represent our constituents. We can't guess what everybody wants to do. The new nuisance ordinance and most of the parts that people seem to have an issue with are already part of the township junk ordinance that was adopted in 2005. Should probably be looked at by the board from time to time to ensure that it's relevant to the current makeup of the township. Things over time change, and ordinance is going to be overbearing or not inclusive enough for the growth that's happened within the township. This draft was an attempt to clean up the document, define some of the terms in the ordinance, and help establish who can actually enforce the ordinance. I appreciate the work that's been done by our staff and by our legal counsel on this proposal. I'm concerned about how items got to the board in the first place and hope by the end of the meeting, we have a better understanding and perhaps as a board provide some guidance to staff on how we'd like to sort of stuff like this in the future. That's all I've got, Mark. I could go on for hours, as you know.
Yeah, you're done. Any other? I don't see any member. I don't see our county commissioner, a member of the road commission. I did have conversation via email with the road commission. They gave me 7-8 dates that we could choose so they could attend our meeting. I indicated to them there's a standing spot for the road commission every month. I did ask them to attend at their earliest convenience, which would be March 12th. Another bit of news, I was hoping they'd be here so they could explain it rather than myself. They're going to do some improvements at West Long Lake Road and South Long Lake Road, that intersection there. They're going to block traffic going north on West Silver Lake Road, West Long Lake Road. And they're going to try to minimize any type of closure going north or easterly on South Long Lake Road. They're going to knock down that hill to make it a better
That'll be great.
vision corner at that intersection. And they're hoping they'll go down to Rogers Road and Fisher Road. Fisher Road is being developed on the north end, so they're coming out the south. And they're going to replace the culvert on Sucker Creek, or the runoff there. I've always known it as Sucker Creek for decades. So that will be closed. So now we're trying to work with the road commission and emergency services of Green Lake, Long Lake, and Blair for a response in the alternate routes.
And inland.
Oh, and Inland Township, yes, our counterpart in Benzie County. So that is scheduled for after July 4th of this year. It was scheduled for as soon as the frost left the ground, they were going to start construction on the impacts that we'd have, and after they reviewed it, at this point, it is scheduled to be after the July 4th Cherry Festival weekend to help minimize congestion. Another heads up. So hopefully we'll have the road commission here with their close to final engineer's plans and their anticipated schedule and closures. It'll be into, yeah, exactly. It'll be after Labor Day. Anticipated, so been trying to work with them to minimize any of that activity. Any other reports? I don't see any other department in. So we'll move on to public comment. I would ask that you rise, go to the podium, state your name, address of residence, and limit your comments to 3 minutes and direct it towards this board chair. If you would, please, is there any member of the public that would wish to speak? This is the opportunity.
My name is Ryan Tuzak, 11541 US 31. I'm here tonight for one reason, is because of this nuisance ordinance. I don't do social media, so I didn't hear from it that way. heard it from people talking, directly communicating, which is pretty good. So I came down and asked some questions to clarify it. I got a copy. And I'm not really impressed with it. It certainly did seem like it was being rammed through. We just got a newsletter from the township recently. Didn't see anything in there relating to this. I can see where there's a need for an overhaul, but this one is very odd. And I asked where it developed from and no one could come up with an answer. There was no committee. There was no board action that supposedly enacted it. It seems like that we had asked our zoning people to come up with this themselves. At least that's the indication I got when I asked the questions, I think, to Ms. Kramer.
And
So-
the attorneys,
Pardon me?
and the attorney.
Right. Which, anyways, so I would ask that this not be adopted. I think this has got a lot of things that needs to be worked on. There's some of your definitions that actually have, they have a, get to this one. One of your definitions is fly-proof, watertight garbage cans. Let's get real here. There's no such thing. So that verbiage doesn't count. Just some basic stuff. Inoperable. Inoperable is in eye of who, what beholder. How are we going to determine those things? That's not fair. Votes. What kind of votes? What's a paddle vote? All right, a vote's a vote. We've got all kinds of seasonal people that stack their paddle boats and everything up all over the place, but yet we want to talk to people about other stuff. So I think there's some objectivity that could be used here. Certainly public outreach to this one, some meetings where the community is involved with the zoning people. To have the zoning folks cook this up and not have the community directly involved right from the front, I don't think this is what we're all trying to do here. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak? Please rise and same procedure. Yes, sir.
Scott Richards, 11802 Fred Meyer. I'm also against this proposal for a nuisance order. I mean, who's to say what's junk and what's not junk? You know, what might be junk to you isn't junk to me. What might be junk to somebody else isn't junk to me. So, like I said, he said very well. I think you should have some input from the community on this subject and then go from there. So I'm against this nuisance order. Thank you very much.
Very good.
on 763 White Pine Road. And I'm also against the proposal of this whole thing. And he mentioned that it was, heard that it was being pushed down our throats, and I still feel that way. I think there's things that it sounds just like a homeowners association. That's not what I bought property here. Not to have them be able to come put liens on your property for trash barrel that's not proper, or the grass is an inch too long. It's just ridiculous. I think we band together, we can come up with some better proposals or ideas. Thank you.
I'm presuming you were talking about the nuisance ordinance strictly. Very good. Thank you. I just wanted clarification. Is there any other member of the public that would like to take their opportunity to speak? Yes, sir.
Frederick Caskey Senior, 11717 US 31. I'm also opposed to this ordinance. There are so many things in this ordinance that are left up to question by whoever's going to write the citation. There's no black and white. It's all gray. The other problem is so many of the things in this ordinance are already covered by state or federal agencies. Why are we doing that ourselves? Give you an example, spillage of oils. Why is the township gonna get involved in that? That's an EPA violation. And there's several other things like that the township doesn't need to be doing since it's already in laws somewhere else. The other problem I have is you get fines, and the fines are $500 a day. And if you don't pay them, you can lose your property. Sounds like somebody's trying to take property for other purposes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak? Yes, sir.
11/7/11 US 31. Once again, we're not an HOA. That's redundant. We've already discussed that. The redundancies, the laws that are on the books, I mean, this is more of a phone call from the township than it should be somebody from zoning writing citations. You know, the Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights violations that are possibly here, very, you know, my private property, it's mine. And the property, a possible property grab. I mean, it's hard enough to pay our taxes. Now we might have a fine because a trash can, or I have a vehicle on my property that's inoperable. And now 3 years later, I'm looking at myself trying to save my property. This is not a good way to go. Leave it at that.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak? Here's your opportunity. Any other one? Seeing none, we're going to move on to postponed business, which happens to be the discussion of the police power ordinances. We attempted to have our township attorney here this evening, and due to the weather and he's coming from Bel Air, he was unable to attend. However, he gave me his cell number, and he's anticipating a call to discuss the police power ordinances and how it came to be and how it came to this board. Currently, we have three ordinances that have been proposed to have some changes done to them. And if the board is amenable to that, I can dial up our attorney, operate him through the microphone system, and hopefully that works so everybody can hear the discussion. And we can proceed with the order of our agenda. I believe our first ordinance that we're going to look at is an update for the short-term rental. We indicated here 13 months ago that we'll let the ordinance ride for a year and see what, if any, changes need to be made to the short-term rental ordinance. The second one is the dangerous structure ordinance, which is very resemblance of the dangerous building law of the state of Michigan, so we could deal with it locally. And the third one, obviously, is a sensitive ordinance for discussion, is the nuisance ordinance. So how would this board like to proceed in this matter? Do we need the attorney on board for the short-term rental ordinance?
I don't see a reason at this point. We may, as we go into discussion, stumble across something. We need to reach out to him for clarification on why, but I think we should be able to move through that one.
Okay, and I believe
hope we can move through that one.
I believe we have Alicia here that was also engaged with legal counsel to see what could be done to these ordinances to bring them up to date.
Rather have the attorney do it, rather have him be.
Okay, we can do that. Thank you, Alicia. Sorry about that.
One thing I don't want to hear from Alicia, because she's got an answer. She don't, we're gonna have to call him up and restate everything.
How do you guys like doing that as a lawyer? We'll be here a little late. That's when you got the clock.
Good evening, Mr. Graham. This is Marvin Radke, Green Lake Township Supervisor. Are you available to be placed upon speakerphone for discussion of the 3 police power? We're putting you on. Are you comfy and warm and at your home? Okay, we are at the point of postponed business, which includes the 3 police power ordinances that you had your hand involved in. The first one is a short-term rental ordinance. I'm gonna bring it to the board and see if they have any questions in regards to the drafting and updating of that ordinance. Any vote?
We've gotten some written comments from the board members. Do you want me to address those first? They deal with all 3 of the ordinances.
Yeah.
Yes, basically, if you could also premise that, prerequisite of how did you get involved and how did it come to be?
Okay. I was talking to Peter, and Peter indicated he was doing some enforcement work, and I'm dealing with your old ordinances. He then suggested to Alicia that the township needed to update its a nuisance and dangerous structures ordinance. And obviously, it's more cost effective for the township to enact new ones as opposed to trying to make all of the modifications that Peter was suggesting in the old ordinances. And so that's how he sent it to me, since I do all the drafting of the ordinances. What I did is I provided some sample ordinances to Alicia, and frankly, the process has not evolved the way I expected it to. I provided sample language, then Alicia then took my sample language and made some modifications to that. I'm not sure what input the board had in making the revisions that Alicia provided, and which is the subject of our discussions tonight. So I leave that up to the board to decide. But we do have some changes that were made to my sample ordinances, which may be fine. I used to know what the board wanted to do. And so now we're at the stage where you want to, and I got comments from the board members related to these draft ordinances. That's where we are. Does that address your question, Marv?
Yes, I believe it brings awareness to this, and this is the evening that we were going to discuss the content of all 3 ordinances and proceed from there. So if you could address the questions of your next step that you were going to take, that'd be great.
Okay, I'm going to start off with Pat's comments. First, he started with the nuisance ordinance, and he wanted to add language, add the word "or" in section 3, capital E. And when I looked at that proposed change, I did not think that was an appropriate change based on just the grammar of the thing. I guess I want to go back and make a couple of preliminary comments. Because I'm assuming everybody has a copy of the draft ordinances.
Yeah. Yes.
And I want to start with subsection 3 on page, there's no page numbers, probably page 4, where it talks about, page 4. At the beginning of that, there was a phrase added, which was not in my draft. It says, after written notice from the township to abate. My recommendation is that phrase needs to be removed. How can you make a notice to abate when that is a requirement to make the nuisance? It makes no sense to have that phrase in there. It needs to start, the following are hereby declared to be nuisances. And then we list those. So that's my first recommendation. Number two, paragraph A was cut down substantially to what I had in my ordinance. And the reason for more details that I would recommend be included is that you're talking about if material is kept or stored in an orderly fashion. The best language, what is meant by being kept or stored in an orderly fashion. And the reason that I included that language is to avoid discussions or defenses by a defense attorney as to whether a particular stack of material is in compliance with the ordinance. So that's my recommendation, that we would go back to the language I had in my original draft ordinance or sample ordinance. Then going to Pat's comments, when you look at things in context, the three say the following are hereby declared to be nuisances. And then easy, being the owner of a cat or dog to permit or allow another person to permit his cat or dog to do any of the following, one or two. I think the way that's written is clear and should be retained as is. Putting the or in there, I think messes up the language from a grammatical perspective.
Mark, this isn't gonna work for me. I can't follow. I mean, I know where he's going, but I can't follow and make the changes he's recommending, and then us to go back and decide if we want them changed or not. We were gonna have a special meeting and work on this ordinance, and I think that's what we should do with the lawyer here, because I can't follow what he's doing.
Okay, so what I'm gathering, did you hear any of that conversation?
Hey, Marv.
Brian? Okay, with that being said, I guess rather than go through with your proposed changes, if there's a way that you have the written comments from some, and there are some others that would like to have clarification or question some of the, not definitions, but the nuisances of this ordinance. So I guess we'll stick with that. If possible, then what we could do is voice our concerns or questions or point of clarifications and have you, I guess, clarify that, draft that, or take a position, recommend a position on that from your legal standpoint. If that makes sense.
By the board members, I agree with it. I have no problem making lots of those changes. So would it be more appropriate for me to take the comments that were written and the ones that I don't have a problem with, make the changes? The ones I do have issues with, I can basically make mutations in the draft ordinance itself, explaining why that proposed change should not be made.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a few, after getting this document and reviewing it and having time to chew on it, I guess I just have a couple questions and statements that I'd like to make in regards to this nuisance ordinance.
Okay.
How do we do morals? For the protection of the health, safety, and morals of the general welfare?
I have a problem with that one too.
I'm just questioning that.
I have no objection to taking the word morals out. That's not legally necessary.
Good, thank you. And let's see, going through the definitions, I can understand and appreciate that is a definition that puts things in black and white to a point. But I'm looking at nuisances 3B, ashes. If somebody has a campfire and they, sit around and enjoy it at their house, and if we can see it, that's a nuisance. I think that's
Overreach at least.
yeah, a little bit of an overreach. And to go back, I think it was addressed earlier, the placing of ashes, junk, garbage, rubbish on property other than what you own. that's already illegal dumping and perhaps trespassing as well. And I think that might be addressed elsewhere. The intentional depositing of liquid petroleum, whether it's an EPA or an Eagle issue. And I know we license dogs in Grand Traverse County, but I'm not aware of registering cats in that regards. And if they poop in the yard and I can see a piece of poop or bowel movement, whatever you want to say, or any other words, that's a nuisance. You know, I'm having questions on that if we're looking that hard.
Well, again, this was a sample ordinance.
Yeah, I understand. That's why I'm not drilling on you. I'm just.
The terms and conditions of the ordinance are completely up to the township. I have no objections to removing any references to the cats. But if I didn't include it in the sample, then you wouldn't know that was a legal option. I mean, there are some communities that have problems with cats, and cats are not covered under the dog law of 1919. Dogs are, okay? And so that's one of the reasons for including the cats, is because there's no other laws associated with that. And if you don't want to deal with cats as a nuisance, then that's perfectly legitimate. I have no problem from a policy perspective.
Well, yeah, and I understand that. I'm not putting it on to you in that regards. Then number 2, to whine, yelp, bark, howl, wouldn't that be addressed by a noise ordinance that we have?
I haven't looked at the noise ordinance.
Yeah.
Let me address, I know this was a comment by a couple of your board members about if you can't see the junk, then maybe it should not be a violation. And that's a legitimate concern. And so can I read you some language that I've developed with another community that addresses that very issue? Okay, so if everybody goes to capital B on this keeping or storage of junk. This is the language that I would use. It says the keeping or storage of ashes, junk, garbage, or rubbish outside of a totally on private property, except in a sealed container designated for the purpose of holding such ashes, junk, garbage, or rubbish, and except when screened by an opaque fence, earthen berm, or vegetative strip, so that ashes, junk, garbage, or rubbish is not visible from any public or private road or from any public or private property. I think that addresses some of the questions that if you can't see it, why is it a violation?
Okay, I see a few that have nodded that. And that is pretty much, well, then the insurance. I've been in an accident a few times, unfortunately, and trying to get the insurance company to come and do an assessment and negotiate the repairs, the funding of that. I would be blessed to have it done under 30 days.
You can always check that.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Yeah, and those are some of the, some of those things. And yes, it could have been written and presented to you in that respect there. But I tried looking at it, reading it, and looking at the rest of our board packet, which is what, 156 pages. No, that was just a question and statement. I've seen them in ordinances where, it's 90 days, or if there is insurance involved, it could take, a period of time. And if it's not where anybody can see it from a public thoroughfare or from a private property of which the township was invited on to witness perhaps an alleged violation, then it doesn't exist.
But
Sherry says,
if junk, I live in one of those neighborhoods that bring in the skunks. So just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it's not junk that shouldn't be there. So
as long as you don't use the drone.
that doesn't stop the skunks.
There's skunks everywhere. The junk next door may
Yes,
not
I
be the
agree
drag,
with
it's the
you.
food and that kind of stuff that may, but a compost pile is something that I would use for my flower beds, to reduce the amount of garbage I'm putting into a garbage dumpster. And a compost pile is probably some of the stuff the skunks may want to go after. So you want to
Right.
remove the ability to have a compost pile.
But that
Because
isn't
of
what I
some-
was,
I can only have the phone in one
That
spot.
was a question. I'm not attacking, I'm just, that's,
but just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not junk, is all. You know, like, some people have to put their stuff on the side of their yard. Like, well, I looked at all this boats and all that. They have put it in the side yard because they have nothing in the backyard. But now it can be seen, so we're gonna classify it as junk. But if they take it out back where we can't see it, it's not junk. I don't want definitions and statements like that on it.
So, okay, did you get the flavor?
We should meet.
Yeah, I did. And again, the draft ordinance I provided specifically addressed that issue, but it was taken out of the draft that you guys have been provided.
you know, Mark.
We didn't get his comments.
I'm not sure that having the attorney on the phone, I thought it might be able to work, but it's very difficult to hear what he's saying. And we're paying some good money to have him here on the phone. I think I've never seen this many people in a meeting in a long time.
It's great.
And I think if we said, we're gonna table this into a special meeting, it looks like we're trying to hide stuff. I think we need to discuss some of the issues that we have with this. Schedule a special meeting so that staff has a chance to come back with stuff that that we are directing them to look at. If we just say we're gonna have a special meeting, we're gonna come back and look at this at a later date, that doesn't do it. That's not right for the residents who took the time out of day on not the best weather day to come here and listen to what we've got to say on their behalf. But I unfortunately, I don't believe Brian being on the phone is least helpful for me.
Well, I've seen
No.
3.
Well, I
4.
found out that he had comments and that he didn't agree with Pat's, which I didn't know before. So,
Yeah, and that's why we were hoping to do it at this meeting, but obviously,
right,
I've seen
there's
circumstances.
comments out and about that all of us apparently haven't seen.
I would say get a clean draft set up. There's several things. I'm not happy about a lot of this ordinance. I think it's onerous. Refrigerator, who's gonna come and look at the refrigerator to make sure I did what I was supposed to? Or I'm gonna get fined. It takes more than 30 days for someone to come and pick up your junk refrigerator. Boats, we all have boats, we all have kayaks, we all have snowmobiles. And I think that we need to meet in person and go over it item by item, give our information.
And then put out a new draft that,
You can't send it. As I said, have a meeting, have a special meeting with everybody and do public input and do our input.
we gotta have a starting place, because I don't know if you've ever sat down and tried to draft an ordinance with 100 people. Yeah, it's chaos. So if we get something, what's that? Yeah, and that's what we're gonna do. You know, thank you.
Marva, I think that we should, as board members, I believe we don't need to have Brian on the phone. I believe as board members, we've all got some individual issues with this. This would be a good time to let staff know what those are, so she can let legal counsel know. If we're gonna have a study session, I don't know if that's what's gonna happen or not. We could come back with a cleaned up version for us to look at, to receive public comment on, to determine what needs to be changed, what doesn't need to be changed, because there's a lot of stuff that I think we seem to all agree, or a majority of us agree, should or shouldn't be in here. Make those recommendations so we've got a cleaner place to start versus what obviously has caused some angst amongst not only the public, but myself as well reading this.
Well, and it could be if you're adding in what the attorney had put in and is no longer in, it may make a difference too. So a clean copy would be nice with our attorney's comments and stuff in there too.
Well, it's obvious that the junk ordinance, the nuisance ordinance is not ready for prime time. So I agree, let's push this one to a different meeting with a better draft. But I think with Brian on the phone, we might be able to get through the other two, because there's a lot less controversial things, a lot less changes.
the short-term rental, I think we could finish that, because there's only one issue that I found in there. I'm not sure, but doesn't the, junk ordinance, doesn't the junk ordinance tie right in with the nuisance ordinance?
It's the same.
It's the same.
Place in the junk ordinance.
Running the same.
It used to be
You
junk,
don't
now
want the
it's
dangerous building.
Oh, okay, I forgot, dangerous building, okay. That's the one you want to do today.
That may go.
Okay, Brian, with that being said, I believe we are done discussing the nuisance ordinance
With the attorney.
with you at this point in time at this meeting. What I'm hearing, I haven't had a motion yet, but we're gonna do something in the future.
I'd like to just table that for right now. I make a motion, we table the or the nuisance ordinance for now. Revert, go back to it before we leave the meeting. So we can give board comments on what we want the attorney and staff to know. And move on to the other two ordinances. That's my motion for now.
You don't need a motion. The agenda
Yeah.
says we're to discuss things.
Okay.
Well, we discussed.
Fine, then let's move on to the next one. I don't care, Dave. Somebody said we need a motion, so I made a motion. No one's-
Let's move on. Hey, move on.
So with that, we're gonna move on to the short-term rental ordinance, which is numerically number 1 in our agenda packet. And
Let me address what I think to be the overriding issues that I saw from the board comments, and that relates to parking. Okay? The board needs to understand that this is a licensing ordinance and is not a zoning ordinance. And because of that distinction, there are limitations that can occur in a licensing ordinance. Let me give you a summary of a Court of Appeals case that actually drew the distinction between a power ordinance versus a zoning ordinance. And it was in the context of a recreational vehicle regulation. And the court said that if you're doing an ordinance that regulates recreational vehicles on a public street or a private street, then that's a police power ordinance. It's not a zoning ordinance. If you're regulating where on the property that a recreational vehicle can be parked, that is a land use regulation and therefore is a zoning regulation. When it comes to parking in the short-term rental ordinance, you can easily state that there is no parking of vehicles on the public or private road. You can probably limit the number of vehicles based on the size of the rental, but you cannot dictate where on the property that parking will occur, because that transforms the regulation from a police power or licensing ordinance to a zoning ordinance. That's just the law.
So Brian, can you just get around that by supplementing the zoning ordinance parking section to say, short-term rentals shall not have parking in non-designated areas?
Do that in your zoning ordinance.
All right, so we just need to coordinate an amendment with this to get what we want.
Exactly, but I was instructed to do a licensing ordinance, and I need to tell you that what the limitations of that is. The difficulty you have is when you're doing a zoning ordinance, and you later want to change all of those short-term rentals that were lawfully operating under the zoning ordinance will be allowed to continue as a non-conforming use.
okay, was there any other comments? Sherry's gonna make a comment.
Yeah, page 3 then of that short-term rental, number G. Should that be eliminated?
What section, Jerry?
On page 3, the G, it says a site plan indicating location of a number of parking spaces. Should that section be eliminated?
If you're going to address that under your zoning ordinance, then yes.
That's my only issue with this.
Well, you still have to designate where the parkings are, then later in the zoning ordinance say, There should be no parking that's not in a designated area like your front lawn.
Go down to where it's standards and it says parking.
Yeah, that's what we're arguing about.
Well, I'm back up at G,
I
at the
know.
top part of the page.
That's a site plan, where the owner has to say, these are my designated parking areas. If he puts one in his bushes, we say, no, we're not gonna let you do that.
No, I
Yes.
just asked him if we should eliminate that because zoning, that's a zoning.
But
You
if the
can't.
zoning says you can't park in non-designated areas, where are the designated areas? They're in number G, when they submit the site plan. You have to designate the area ahead of time.
I understand, G is only an application subsection. You're wanting to do information. It's not a regulation or a standard.
It's submitting a site plan that shows parking.
Yeah,
That's
it's
good.
perfectly
That's a good
allowed
thing.
because all you're seeking is information.
Have there been issues with this? Why are we changing this? It's only been a year. And I'm asking, there hasn't been any problems, there hasn't been any complaints. So why are we changing this? It's been.
That's not something I can address.
Alicia, you've been asked a question.
We adopted this ordinance in 2021, and when I was reviewing it as part of the package of the other items that I thought needed to be addressed, Brian brought up the parking for the zoning aspect. I am addressing it specifically from the septic system and the onerous aspects for staff, the county, and property owners having to get the same form over and over and over again. So that was where it started. And then Brian pointed out that we can't have the parking standard, and he suggested eliminating the portions related to misdemeanors and the board suspending a license, because what good does a piece of paper do? But after having done, we're into our third set of year of licensing, and the septic system evaluations are the biggest onerous part for customers, the health department, and then staff. So the presentation was to try and make it easier for everybody. But then Brian pointed out those two elements, or three, I guess, misdemeanor and the parking.
Hey, Marv, I'm just wondering why, once you initially file for your short-term rental license, why do you need to ever bring back a inspection of your septic tank?
That's my question.
Because it could fail tomorrow after it's inspected, just like I could take my car into the mechanic, he can look and go, everything looks great. So my proposal as a board member would be to only require a septic inspection or a septic from the county, or if the county doesn't have a record of that septic, and it's a certified inspection from a qualified professional, which I have a hard time determining what a qualified septic person would be, maybe a pumper, I don't know. That could issue that permit or that information to us once. And as long as that license doesn't expire or go bad, they wouldn't need to bring back another septic thing for us. Because if I was running a short-term rental and poop was coming out onto the yard, no one's gonna rent my short-term rental. They're gonna take care of that facility without us needing to tell them to clean up their poop.
Plus, it puts a stress on the health department having them come and inspect this too.
So
I
that's
think
not how it works.
No,
The health department goes to their files and pulls the report from whatever permit they got in 1986, signs that that's what the system allowed for at that time. So no inspections are being done.
No,
This
but you're
idea
still
was to
having the
just-
health department do extra work that they shouldn't have to do. I could see one time when they.
Right, that's what I want to get it to, is to just have it be one inspection, and then the health department says, yep, it's good, and then have a nice day. And that eliminates, I mean, the 3 to 5 years is standard, which was just language that was put in there, but ideally it would be one proper inspection. The health department signs off on it, and then that's good for the lifetime of the rental. That they'll still have to get their short-term rental license, but from the actual rental standpoint, unless there were failure. 'Cause right
They have to
now-
go at least once to set capacity.
Right,
Yeah.
but after that, I mean, every 2 or 3 years, you shouldn't have to.
What along like, they make you pump your thing before you can sell your house unless you've been pumped in the last 3 to 5 years.
That's why I'm living
We
in
don't
Greenland.
live on-
Right now, it's a lot of paperwork as it exists today. The way that the ordinance was drafted was that you have to get a well and septic status report form from the health department, which again is just signing whatever they had in the files from 1986. The idea was get one inspection that verifies it's good. The health department says it's good and it's this capacity and it's good until such time that you stop for it or it fails or.
Marv, is there anyone on the board that's opposed to removing the requirement of continuously bringing in documentation to show the septic tank after the initial license?
Did everybody hear that or should I repeat it?
Where's, what, you need
So right
Number
now,
five.
the way the ordinance exists today
And
is the
eight.
health department report, but the presentation, it does list it 3 to 5 years, but it could be just once, and then that's good for the life of the
Okay,
property. I mean, we have to get the legal words from Brian,
right.
good until perpetuity or failure, whichever. comes.
Failure or an addition of that would qualify for extension of the system.
Yep.
Does anybody have an issue with that? Proposed changes? What's that?
I was gonna say initially when they begin the rental.
Yes, they have to have the first one.
They apply for a new or one that has expired. So if I have a short-term rental and I stop using it for 2 years,
Exactly.
I need to apply again and bring that
That's what I
stuff
want.
in, I think would be,
So you're renting and you
Mhm.
get your inspection, which is good wherever the health department has said it. The capacity is for 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and the system is good.
Yep.
You rent this year, but not next year. You don't have to the following year go back and get that inspection again. You just have to verify.
my proposal is if your license expired, you don't renew it, you need to go through the steps to start from scratch.
No.
That is my
Everybody
proposal.
expires.
Well,
That's
that's
what I'm
your
proposing.
proposal,
Yes, it
but,
is. You don't
but
have to agree with it.
it doesn't change
Okay, we
anything.
won't
You're
agree.
just putting the people through an extra step.
But I sell the house to you.
Right.
You now go and apply for a license.
Right.
In order to set how many bedrooms you can have on that license, we need to know what the septic capacity is.
Don't you keep your septic inspection paperwork to give on to the next person?
Nope.
Well,
I never
do.
got it.
Well,
I
at least you
do.
would have it on file because it's the same address.
And as long as there was no construction on the place, nothing would change.
So all of our licenses expire on December 31st of the year for which it's issued. I
As of
only
now.
had 20 renew before the expiration. So that would mean every single one of them would need to get that inspection again, and I don't think.
No, that's my intention. If there's a lapse, we'll say a lapse of 365
It's
days.
fine. I just wanted to make sure I understand.
Not when they want to renew it. They have to renew it and it's expired for a month. I'm looking at a long-term, and I don't know what that time frame would be, 3 months, 6 months, a year, a decade, whatever. Sometimes that we can have a current record that shows when they're applying for that new, for all practical purposes, a new short-term rental license, how many bedrooms are allowed to be in that facility, because that's what we base it off of.
That's right.
And I'm not sure why we chose as a board to do a 12-month short-term rental license. Why can't we do a 5-year or a 3-year, a longer term? Why does it need to be renewed every year? If the person doesn't do anything wrong, we don't yank it. Why can't they continue to have it? A lot of licenses are multiple years in length. It causes additional labor for our staff. It does, it's more paperwork we need to do. I don't know why we need to do it. Maybe there's a reason that it should be renewed every year. Does anyone on the board have
I
any
think the
idea why
board
we need to do it?
voted that way because it was a trial. We had never done it before. And it was a way for us to test it, to see how it worked.
But is there any
Keep
reason
track
it
of the
needs to stay at
renewals.
12 months, or can we extend it to a multi-year license?
Well, point of order, weren't we gonna leave this alone and just deal with it once a year? Seems like we're dealing with this every 3 months. Why are we doing this?
Well, it was brought
What is
to
the
us-
problem?
Well, we had it 3 months in advance so we could study it and relearn it.
We still haven't.
So what is the problem? And Alicia's just alluded to, it'd be simpler paperwork wise to do this.
Yeah.
Sounds reasonable to me. What else we gotta talk about?
There you go.
And when I was on the ZBA, we had a resident who is a owner occupied, was doing short-term rentals out of her owner occupied house. But unfortunately, our ordinance doesn't allow you to live in the facility. You can't rent out your grandma flat, your basement with a separate entrance if you live on the property. And I don't know if that's.
Our ordinance doesn't apply if you live in a house.
So you can't rent it out unless you get a bed and breakfast restaurant, a
No.
rental license.
It doesn't apply. If you're living in the house, it says it one of the first articles.
Not a short-term rental.
But
It's not a short-term rental.
But why can't we change that so that I can rent out my carriage house?
It's already at the end of your back.
I want to remove that so that if I live on the property, I can rent my garage out.
You can't.
No, if
No,
it,
accessory dwellings are not allowed to be
Right.
short-term rented, and if
Well,
it also says that the owner or caretaker may not live on the premises while it's being rented.
and a lot of the complaints that come out about short-term rental are about control of those who are staying there acting out. If I'm living on the property and Marv comes and throws a rambunctious party when he rents out the carriage house, I'm gonna boot him. Cause I live there and I want it to be peaceful. So I think it would resolve some of the issues that people have with short-term rentals by allowing.
What I'm referring to is Article 1 definitions, E, short-term rental. The definition says,
And I have a problem with that.
you do.
I do.
It's always been in there.
Doesn't mean I didn't have a problem with it when we passed it before.
It just means if you have a house and you live in it, this doesn't apply.
It's not what, there's an,
You can't rent it. It's not a short-term rental. It doesn't
It's
consider.
not a short-term rental.
So you can't rent it short-term if you live on the property.
It's saying this ordinance doesn't apply, right?
This
I'm
ordinance.
with Paul on it.
What's that?
I'm with you on that.
It was always that way from the beginning. I asked it, we went through it, and it's
So-
like, if you have a house and you rent your room to your mother or whoever, this doesn't apply.
For a week.
Exactly.
if you read the definition of short-term rental, it specifically says a short-term rental means a dwelling unit which guests transient are provided lodging for a period of less than 30 days in return for payment, and which the dwelling is not occupied by the owner or caretaker in any way.
Right.
But it is occupied.
Not a short-term rental.
It's not a
My brother's
short-term rental.
Nothing to do with this.
A short-term rental.
It's a rental.
But
It's
if
a
you
regular
live,
rental.
if he's there for less than 30 days, not allowed in our ordinance.
I disagree. It's not what it says.
That's the joys of administering ordinances in this world. It's the interpretation and the understanding of that. So.
All right.
This is what we're charged with.
Well, this was gonna be the simple 2 to get through. How long do you want to spend on these?
I would say, let's do them all at a special meeting with Brian.
Well, there's 3 different ordinances.
The short-term rental, there hasn't been any issues. I don't know why we're revisiting it. I can understand the septic tank situation one time and that's it. That would be the only change I'd recommend. The rest of it is working fine. I don't know why we have to keep discussing it.
Well, what was Dave's issue though? On, the parking?
Wanted to say you couldn't park on the front lawn and stack up boats and trailers as thick as you can stack them. That's why people don't like short-term rental. They're offensive. The neighbors,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
so if they park on the lawn and everywhere else, it's.
But then,
That's a zoning regulation from
Well,
the
we
understanding.
fixed that. 2 seconds.
Yep.
In their zoning.
And so-
zoning. Okay. And where do you want to fix it, Leisha?
The standard related to the septic and well status report inspection, currently
Just give me the page, and
It's
let's
number
number
5,
these
page
things. Okay,
and it's to give it, we had initially said 3 years because that's a standard, but 1 year, once and done would be more appropriate because then they get an inspection that determines the
capacity.
the size, that it's in good working order. The health department then verifies, yep, it's for this many bedrooms. And then they turn that in and they repeat, reuse that form year after year after year after year for each license renewal based on the current annual renewals.
So Judy, all these recommendations on, they're innocuous, they're almost admin type changes, so. The one you guys just pointed out with that one change, I think we're all in agreement.
I think so too.
With the exception of, we also took out the misdemeanors and the,
I said the whole list will take,
Okay.
except for, we'll modify the septic renewal.
I agree.
we'll change it to once and done. With the appropriate lawyer words.
Yes. So if you got that, Dave, and you want to make those 2 changes outside the list, we can put this to bed. Or are we going to
No, I think we can put it to bed. I mean,
We need a motion.
If we just eliminated, Leisha, if we just eliminated, after the word conducted every 3 years and just put the word once
Yeah,
by a qualified expert, we'd be done, right?
filed with the application for the annual short-term rental license and be valid until such time that the system fails or there's a proposed change to the number of bedrooms. So it just takes out for 3 years or.
Yeah, every 3 years.
Okay, and there was another one. Pat?
Says here the inspection's got to include the drain field size. I guess to my knowledge, I don't think that plays into what the health department.
It is.
Yeah, they do tank and, dimensions, 50 foot, 3 foot on centers, blah, blah, et cetera.
For their bedrooms.
Yeah, the soil
Yeah,
determined.
and garbage disposal. Garbage disposal is counted as, but anyways. Okay, and we got the parking. That would be a zoning.
We can do that later.
I think we have to change the words that it's written under number 4.
That's all you did.
Right.
You already fixed it.
No, I do. The spaces though. There's one other.
No,
Yeah,
as-
we did.
It's already fixed.
Yep.
Yeah, we did.
Okay,
Are you gonna make a motion here to adopt the, changes to the short-term rental ordinance with the one change that's been expressed?
of the one and once and done.
Recommendations are done.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Baganowski, supported by Kramer, to adopt the short-term rental ordinance with the noted changes listed. That includes reducing the inspections to one and only until such time as it fails or there's an addition change to the occupancy of the structure. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Any other discussion? We're gonna have a roll call on this one.
You want the new number?
Yes.
We want to include that?
Yeah.
It's gonna be 01 09 2024.3.
When you get your changes done, Alicia, will you email us a copy?
McDonald.
Yeah.
West.
Yes.
Merrick.
Yes.
Biondo.
Yes.
Biganowski.
Yes.
Kramer, yes, and Radke.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. The next item, it's under the postponed business would be the dangerous structure ordinance.
So, Brian, are you still tuned in?
I am. I have no problem taking out the morals on the purpose section.
Right. So the big question though is, the statutory procedure that we've used for years and other townships use that have the hearing officer. If we adopt this police power ordinance, can we still use the statutory procedure or are we limited?
This ordinance does not include the procedures that are for a hearings officer. And frankly, I would probably not recommend that. Because before you can get involved in taking down or tearing down, you have to be sure you, the property owner, do property. And so, ability, I think that due process hearing should be done by a court and not by a hearings officer.
That's not my
Okay.
question, Brian. The question is that old statutory procedure still available in total as an alternative to this that we can choose?
Well, you gotta understand, when you look at the definition of a dangerous structure, that is a definition of the Michigan housing law, okay? Michigan housing law provides various procedures for enforcement. And township legally has the to adopt the Michigan housing law if you wanted to, and then follow that statute and basically enforce the statute as the enforcing agency. If you do that, I'm telling you, you'll be the only municipality that I've worked with in the past 30 years to do that. And is it a legal option? Of course it is. Then you don't, you're a structure, you just enforce the Michigan housing law. And so what is intended by the dangerous structures ordinance is to bypass all of the requirements of the Michigan housing law, which is going to add lots of responsibilities to the township in addition to this, and basically determine whether you have a dangerous structures, have a court hearing, and move on. I don't see the need to follow the procedures of the statute. And we've successfully enforced dangerous structures based simply on the ordinance.
Still didn't answer the question.
What's the question? If you want to go to hearings,
Brian, you can do the dangerous buildings statutory procedure without adopting the housing code. I mean, that's what people have done around here for 40, 50 years. I'm just saying, do we still have that option even though we have our own dangerous building ordinance?
I guess I'm not familiar with that, what you're talking about in terms of the procedures that they're following.
Have you been called, or anybody been called to be a dangerous building hearing officer?
Yeah, Blair Township basically uses a hearings officer.
Yeah, I'm their hearing officer.
But it's my understanding that's based on their ordinance.
I'm not sure they have an ordinance, but okay.
Yeah. We have an ordinance.
And my enforcing agent or officer.
I'm done.
Okay, any other questions in this regards?
Are we on?
Streamlining it so, to ensure that we give due process and that we're not the judge and jury, hence the court, correct?
That's my recommendation, yes.
Pat?
Paragraph 2(8). Thinking we should either clarify that it applies only to new construction or get rid of it because it's afraid that too many people.
So my recommendation on 2H, you can either delete that paragraph or I can try to tighten up the language. That's up to the board.
Okay, thank you for the comment in that regards, Brian. Paul, you have any questions?
With that, we didn't make a decision what we wanted Brian to do or what Pat wanted.
Yep, that would be outlined in the motion, it's written right here, so whoever makes the motion with that conversation. We have any other issues, Paul? Any other comments in this document?
Well, it looks like we just eliminate H.
Sherry?
No.
Judy?
Nope.
My question's been addressed. Andy?
Under notice, it says by first class mail. I don't know if anyone here has had any issues with the United States Post Office recently, but I've had numerous calls to my office, tax bills weren't received. And I've had numerous people tell me that they've sent checks to us we never received. And we have sent checks to vendors that they have never received. So I would prefer to have that changed to certified mail so that we actually know that the letter has been received by the person who we're having an issue with.
No, they won't accept it.
Yeah, they won't sign for it then.
You can do delivery confirmation.
Even better. That way, at least the way that we know that because I drop it in the mailbox, there's no guarantee they're getting it.
We confirm to the resident. But that's
where
pretty good note.
Andy, in our court rules, you can evict somebody with first class mail notice.
I don't necessarily agree with that, but
Been-
that's why I'm bringing this up, that I think that could be an issue, at least in my opinion, because I have seen in the last year numerous issues with the delivery of mail in A, timely manner, and B, even receiving it.
Does that adequate, Brian?
Is that adequate, Brian? Paul asked.
I understand if you're going to use the court to provide the due process hearing, you're in fact going to have an order from the judge that's going to order the demolition of the building. And so frankly, I'm not sure that this notice provision is even necessary if you're going to use the court process.
Didn't want them to serve it.
Anything else, Pat?
No.
Dave?
No. So is he recommending removing the notice section then too? From the ordinance that's proposed in front of us?
Do you want to remove the notice or should we continue with that notice section?
I don't, frankly, because this is after the court finds that you have a dangerous structure, is found to be a dangerous structure. Then I don't see where this notice is necessary, because if you use the court process as part of the formal hearing process, you're going to ask the judge for an order requiring demolition. Okay, that order would then be served as any other pleading would be. And so I think we can eliminate this notice provision in its entirety.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion that we adopt, it's gonna be ordinance number 01092024.4, removing number H, letter H, and number 4 notices from the document and leaving the rest as is.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Kramer, supported by Merrick, to adopt dangerous structure ordinance with the removal of letter G
H.
or H, I'm sorry.
That should be H under 2.
H under 2.
In the morals part.
In the morals, and number 4, the notification. Does everybody understand what was stated?
Yep.
The motion contains, please do a roll call, Judy.
Kramer, yes. Biganowski.
Yes.
Biondo.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Merrick.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yeah.
And Radke.
Yes, motion carries. Okay, I believe, Mr. Graham, we are completed with you. Hopefully we're not charged by the word.
You know what, we want to do a special meeting, I think, to go over the nuisance ordinance. Any idea when you're looking at?
We have no idea yet this time, but we will be sure to include you in the date and time options. That is very, very good, sir. Yep, have a good night. Bye. Okay, that concludes postponed business. Next item on our agenda is the zoning ordinance amendment 23-004, zoning text amendment. It's in our packet. Is there a brief overview that Alicia would like to do? I believe she has support staff of Attorney McKellar.
For a text amendment that was approved by the planning commission to remove from the definition of water bodies the word wetlands. The bill doesn't regulate wetland setbacks. Our ordinance currently does. The idea was just remove it. Why should we regulate setbacks for wetlands if Eagle themselves doesn't? Eagle, Department of Environmental Department of.
Great Lakes.
Is that the old DEQ?
DOD.
Yes.
Okay. They don't regulate it.
They don't regulate, they don't have setbacks for wetland. And I called a few of our neighboring municipalities. Long Lake doesn't have a setback either for wetlands.
So with that being done, I believe Mr. McKellar was instrumental in debating the definition and coming to a reasonable conclusion, I presume.
Yes, thank you, Mark McKellar, Attorney Coon Rogers, on behalf of Lawrence Torno, the property owner that was initiating this request. Long story short is we've had a long litigation with the neighbor after my client was issued an EGLE permit to build the driveway to get to the buildable land area on his property. We went in for a land use approval, and given the upland area that we can build based on a wetland setback interpretation that Alicia was carrying over from previous township interpretations, and no fault of hers, that's just the way that it was interpreted. basically left about a 4 foot by 12 foot area to build a home. And so, I looked at the ordinance and the language of the ordinance was a little bit, wonky. In fact, it had a severe ambiguity. It defined, water body setbacks, defined water bodies. But then also defined wetlands as land with the presence of water. And you can't really have land and a lake or land and water. So I brought that up to Alicia and the Township Legal Counsel. And the recommendation was, let's go for a text amendment. And it's consistent, and Alicia's right. EGLE stopped regulating wetlands setbacks, and that's left up to communities, and very few have wetland setback regulations because EGLE will permit the activity or they won't. And then the municipality would just have their standard setbacks. And the way the ordinance was written, if you take out wetlands from the definition, it makes a lot more sense because what they're really talking about is littoral lands like rivers, talking about water bodies like ponds, lakes, and and such. So, what you're trying to avoid is interaction with flooding and interaction with surface waters. That's really the intent there. So, given that, we went to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission approved recommendations for the change in the language to clarify the ambiguity in the ordinance. And we certainly would ask that you affirm that and make the change in the ordinance, not only for the benefit of my client, but I think it actually is probably an area that you guys don't want to be in the business in. Let EGLE be in the business of it. And it still permits the regulation of water bodies, which I think was the original intent.
Okay, thank you. I did receive questions from officers of the Green Lake Duck Lake Association, the entity that's the watchdog of water quality. And they had no issues with this request as well. They understood the request and are amenable to it. Any questions of this board for Alicia or to Mr. McKellar?
They'd still need to get permits from Eagle or whatever state agency there is when they're working around the lakes.
Whatever regulating authority is there, correct?
Okay. So there is still protection of our waterways that we.
Oh, yes.
We all. Lots have moved this area for.
Yeah, correct.
But it's the ambiguous wetlands.
Yeah, whether wetlands is part of like lakes. Right now, if you wanted to regulate the 50-foot setback from a lake or 25, that's not changed. And any agency approvals, either part 301 or whatever, 303, that's all going to be required.
Yeah, so everything's in that regard still remains the same. Dave, any questions, comments?
No.
Amendment, Pat?
Some hesitation to totally eliminate setback. I mean, you got runoff from asphalt, shingles, people washing their houses, you're gonna have the detergents running off, pesticides applied to the base of the house. I mean, 50 feet might be severe overkill, but
Have you ever attempted to delineate the edge of a wetland? You get 16 experts, they'll get 16 opinions, and they each cost $6,000.
Fair enough.
I'm in the wrong business.
Yeah, it's a valid question. They made you
It takes 6 months.
appreciate that. Paul, do you have anything?
No.
Sherry? Judy? Myself included.
Is on the planning commission, correct? Yeah. What was the general consensus or the discussion around this at the planning commission?
generally they redid it. I think it was a 5.
Okay, thank you.
You're on ZBA.
Correct.
Have you had one person come in since you've been on the ZBA wanting a setback from the wetlands?
We would have probably his client.
Probably his client.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
Did you grant it or did you let it
I
go?
wish I could give you an answer right now, but
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, discussions? If not, I entertain.
I'll make a motion, we adopt ZOA 23-04 zoning text amendment.
Second.
Got a motion by Merrick, supported by Biondo, to adopt zoning ordinance amendment 23-004 with the removal of wetland from our definition of water body setback. Any discussion? Hearing none, please do a roll call.
Merrick,
Yep.
Biondo,
Yes.
McDonald,
No.
Biganowski.
Yes.
Kramer, yes. West
Yes.
and Radke.
Yes, motion carried, 6-1.
Thank you for time and effort on this at the township level. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Have a good day. Drive safe. At this point in time, as I mentioned earlier, under the reporting process, Chief Case has entered the building.
You want to skip that down and do chief cases for report?
I would like to do Chief Case right off the get-go, just in the event there's another incident that he's gonna be required to go to. Chief Case, if you could come to the podium, we have your written report. Is there anything else that you would like to report on that was not in your written? So you have another agenda item here in a little
I
bit.
do, and I
Two
can,
more.
yeah, I can just bring that up with the engine. It was just, we talked about extrication tools and I can just mention the timeline in that. Other than that, no, I don't have anything else to report.
You have nothing else to report on the reports? Very good. Don't go far.
I'll make a motion to adopt the property exemption resolution 01092024.1 as we're required to do that. Anyway.
We have a motion by Merrick, supported by Biondo, to adopt the poverty exemption resolution 01092024.1 as required by statute. Any discussion? Roll call this one, please.
Would you, for the audience members, since that was rushed through, maybe explain to them what the poverty exemption is?
Poverty exemption is for landowners, homeowners to apply to the township to get an abatement or relief from paying property taxes. And those requirements are set by the federal guidelines as far as your income and your health condition. There's other items there that I may not have covered, but I see we do have Isaac in the back of the room. Did I address that briefly? And
Microphone.
right.
So for those at home who can't hear Isaac in the back, it doesn't exempt you from special assessments.
So, but we are required to review and adopt the federal standards annually.
Would you correct it for me, Dave, so it's said right?
No.
Doesn't exempt you from special.
Does not.
Not
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, any other discussion, comments? Thanks. Inquiries? Okay, with that, roll call, please.
Biondo.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Kramer, yes. Biganowski.
Yes.
Merrick.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
And Radke.
Yes. Resolution considered adopted. Next item, Chief Case, fire engine approval.
Okay, so I kind of talked to you guys last month and going back to last April, the board approved Treasurer Merrick to solicit some financing from some banking institutions. I also provided Mr. Merrick with two additional lenders. Two that I made contact with were provided from our dealer, from the dealer that I'm going to be talking about, and got some prices. But really, what I'm asking the board to do is go into a purchase agreement with West Shore Fire, who is a dealer for E1. E1's an engine manufacturer and has been for a long time. And we've had them in the county. Kingsley had one back in the rural days, and I had one under Grand Rapids Township when I was there. And they have two demos engines. So these engines are not built. These are built with standard, basically pumpers. It's their common application that they have with pumps, water, foam, and just the basic layout. Interesting that all the compartments on this engine match our current engine as far as the door configurations, minus a 2-foot cabinet that we have about in front of the pump panel. The cab is basically the same as our current engine. So I do have a request to them for additional pricing for a light on the very top. That's a oscillating scene light that we have on our current engine. I don't have a price back on that, but that's neither here nor there. We're under a little bit of a crunch because anybody can pick these up from the dealer at any point in time. This engine is already in the manufacturing process. And right now, engines are looking, a pumper is looking 2 years out right now. If we sign the, and got in order, and then there's additional regulations that are coming out with emissions stuff, and a lot of the manufacturers are saying, you know, that potentially could be looking at 4 years out coming soon. So with the board approving this, this would allow us time. We don't have to have our lenders in place right now, but we do have lenders that are very interested in working with us. This would just get us that truck so it can't be sold out from underneath us with anybody else. I think the price is, they've already said, if we ordered the same engine today, it'd be $120,000 more in the same configuration. So what I'm asking the board to do is approve this purchase, and then we can work on the financing. We've got 3 good options right now out there, and work on that in the process. We don't have to have anything secured as far as lenders for them. This is just an agreement that we agree to purchase this for this amount, and we can go from there. I've given you guys basically the layout of what this engine's coming with, which is the standard. So that's what I have.
So nothing custom, nothing fancy, just the piece of equipment to get the job done.
Yeah, yep.
I'll make the motion. We authorize supervisor to sign a purchase agreement
Support.
for this fire truck.
State the amount, please.
$175,000.
We have a motion by Baganowski, supported by Merrick, to authorize the supervisor to sign the purchase agreement in the amount of $675,000.
If we have.
I want an address, 'cause there's a light bar that
There
you
may be
indicated.
additional things that need to be added to it that Chief Case comes across, so we need to bring that back to the board with your motion, or you?
Yes.
It should be covered under his budget.
Well, we've
Why?
covered with those lenders, we've already went with those lenders and said, hey, if we need additional costs for some hose or for this light, can we also have, they have an allotment that we could increase that to 75,000 or whatever with that loan amount that we would agree upon later. So, and
You can amend a purchase agreement later.
Okay, I'm good with that, thanks, Dave. I didn't know what.
But we did discuss that with those lenders and they were amenable, and that's pretty common.
Very good. Any other questions, comments? Cool.
The purchase agreement. We run it past the attorney.
Yes, once we get the agreement, yeah. Right now, we don't have,
So technically, who's authorized? Are we authorizing supervisor to sign this, or you?
the supervisor,
Supervisor.
but I wouldn't do it without.
No, we, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, any other discussion? If not, roll call, please.
West,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Merrick,
Yes.
Biganowski.
Yes.
Biondo.
Yes.
Kramer, yes, and Radke.
Yes. Motion carried. Next item. You found somebody. And you're making a recommendation.
Yep, so the next recommendation, is to hire a couple paid on call, so Aiden Waddell and Lucas Deschler. Both just completed, actually, the course completed today. They went through EMT training with me for the last 6 months. And, so they'll go off on the EMT testing within the next 30 days, hopefully. Aiden is already, certified fire 1 and 2, works, with Inland right now, so he's close. And then, Lucas is now in fire school right now, so he's being sponsored, I think, with Paradise. They're sponsoring him through, but he lives just outside the township. So background checks have been done with both of those, and yeah, I don't see any issues. So they'd be paid on call.
I'll make a motion to hire Aiden Waddell and Lucas Dexler for the request of the chief.
Support.
We have a motion by Kramer, supported by Merrick, to approve Chief Case recommendation of hiring Aiden Waddell and Lucas Deschler as paid on-call employees. Any discussion?
Yeah, I want to ask the chief, did we lose some firefighters?
No,
Were they off on vacation or something last month? Because when I was looking through the bills and that.
not a PTO, and then we had 4 holidays. So holidays and PTO.
Okay.
Yeah, his budget doesn't like this time of year.
It was bad. That's why I wondered if we lost and then with 2 new ones coming tonight, so.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries 7-0.
And the only other thing I was gonna mention with the engine too is I will be coming back to the board next month. I applied to the Grand Traverse Band for extrication tools. Because the ones that are on the current engine need to be replaced with the new engine. But I made a request and hopefully that gets granted, but we don't know until the end of the month. But if not, I have a demo set of that same request that's significantly lower. They are agreeing to hold for us. So in the event that we don't get the grant, I'll be coming back next month with a capital purchase for those, just because it's the right time, because we have the opportunity to save 24% on a pretty significant cost, but in anticipation of what we're gonna need for the engine. So just FYI.
And these won't be tethered to the engine.
No,
Or
there's gonna
any
be
equipment.
new technology. They're battery operated, where our current ones are tethered. They can't go off the engine because they need the PTO that runs the hydraulic pump that's in that truck, where the new technology is a lot of it's battery driven. And these are separate, independent. So if we had something off where we can't get the engine to, we can manually just take these and carry them, and they're faster. The technology just in 23 years has come to this. So
Very good.
thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Resort Economic Development License request from the Interlochen Arts Academy. I do believe we have at least 1 or 2 or 3 representatives here. So we have your information that you supplied us. And I guess if you could give a brief synopsis or scenario of what your intentions are, what your word would be given, I guess would be a good thing to start with. And also if any responses from your contacts with the surrounding facilities that carry a current license, liquor license. If that's at all possible, please rise to the podium.
Thank you very much. I'm Trey Devi. I'm the president of Interlochen Center for the Arts. Appreciate your work, and especially on another long evening for the board. Thank you very much for that. I am joined by some colleagues with me today. Pat Kessel, our vice president of operations and finance. Brent Roble, our executive director of Interlochen Present. Shelby Epic, who is our artist relations manager and special projects manager, and Courtney Danbrook, the attorney who's been assisting us in the process of trying to secure a liquor license. I've connected with many of you personally over the past years at ceremonial events, and with my thanks, but I want to thank the board for your leadership, for our community, and for the partnership with Interlochen. We appreciate the collaboration that you've had with our institution. I think one of the most notable pieces is, I think an officer is still here, but the only public-private partnership that I'm aware of that brings a community police officer to our neighborhood, and among the other things. So thank you for that. With regard to the request that we're bringing to you, it's been a long day. You've got the materials. I don't want to restate everything that's in the document, but I'd just like to highlight that one of the challenges that we have as an organization relates to providing the full breadth of amenities to the patrons that come to our community, and in particular for the major concerts that we present at Interlochen, primarily throughout the summer months. One of the standard offerings that venues like ours, and we see this in our broader community with other nonprofit institutions, whether it's the City Opera House, NMC with their venues, is offering, having a liquor license to be able to offer this amenity to their patrons. As we've included in the materials, We have been operating under temporary liquor licenses that give us the opportunity for 12 events to sell liquor, wine, and beer throughout our season. As most of you know, we offer more than 12 concerts on a standard basis. And so the level of consistency that we're able to provide to our patrons is not at the world-class level that we aspire to. And so it is our hope to have a license that covers all of the events that we offer so that we can maintain that level of consistency. Supervisor, you asked the question about our inquiries with other businesses in the community, and we did reach out to the leadership of the three major restaurateurs that have liquor licenses and offerings, Hofbrau, Bradley's, Okies, and have, I believe, earned their support for this proposal. What we aspire to do is to be complementary to our community. We want to, of course, do what's in the best interest of the students and patrons that come to our community. We think that reflects well, not just on Interlochen, but on Green Lake Township. But we want to be a good neighbor in our community, and we want to certainly be at our best, which is why we're asking for your support of this request.
Very good, thank you. Before we continue on, before Deputy Nofke leaves, has this past year, 22-23, has there been any incidents with respect to drunks, disorderlies, something of that nature that was attributed to the activity of ICA and their serving of alcohol?
So this actually would have been year number 2 of whole year time. And
Yes.
we had, I think, very minimal issues. The first year, they were limited on how many beverages they could have, and I think last year we opened it up. I don't think there wasn't this year. The only thing we had, and I think this person pre-gamed prior to the concert.
The tailgating aspects?
And I- it was the greatest of things. No issues. We had to get control, interrupting other patrons, which I was actually very impressed with how that's handled. And I think our mere presence and partnership with you guys has also helped that, because we typically have a total of 4 law enforcement officers there at a particular concert for the summer.
Yeah, some of them were pretty blue
Yes.
instead of the brown. Thank you, Deputy Nofke. I'm sorry, Trey, I believe you were reaching the conclusion of your initial synopsis. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, other than myself and the members of our team are happy to answer any questions that you've got, clarifying or otherwise about what we're trying to do. The last thing that I would say is, I saw some maize and blue here. There are a few world-class institutions in Michigan. And I just want to say, while I've got the microphone here, we appreciate the partnership with Green Lake Township. We want to be a world-class global leader for our community, and we're grateful for the partnership. So thank you for your consideration.
Very good, thank you. As a personal attestation, I've attended several of the concerts over the last couple of years, and I bore witness to the alcohol tent, beer and wine tent, whatever it might be. And I personally didn't see any issues, didn't have any issues. And I think I partook in bottled water, but I still was there. So, and you opened yourself up, sir, by questions of this board. So you asked for it. Dave.
You mentioned you talked to the owners of Okies, Bradley's, and Hofbrau, but you didn't say what they said.
Yeah, we had specific meetings with them. I met with Brian and John, and our attorney met with Brad. And so they were in favor. For example, Brian said he had no issues whatsoever. Whatever we need to do to improve our business, he was up for it. John was excited at Okies for the fact that we bring patrons, we bring customers to his business. He's greatly appreciative of what we do to fill his restaurant during the summertime, especially. And so, yeah, we didn't get any negative feedback. We thought, there might be issues with taking business away from them and that type of thing. So that's why we wanted to reach out ahead of time. But we had, and by the way, I'm Pat Cussell. By the way, I know I was introduced earlier, just so you know. So that's in a nutshell. But any other questions related to that, I'm happy to ask. And one other thing related to the serving of alcohol, we cut that off, just like at a ball game where they cut it off at a certain time frame. So it's not like we keep serving to the end of the concert. And so basically intermission time frame is when we cut off the serving for that.
As you guys are asking, because you guys do have concerts are pretty upscale, whatever. I went to one of your concerts where they served alcohol, and I had a drunk idiot behind me who spilled beer on me. Okay, I don't want to go to concerts with drunk idiots spilling beer on me, and that was going to affect my decision to go there again. I'm kind of surprised you guys want to add alcohol. It's not necessary. I think you sell out any. It's a business decision of yours.
Very good. Pat, any questions?
I might have missed it, but are you looking for a resolution? Is there some particular form that you need for present to the state or something?
Yeah, the signature on the bottom of the application. Get a resort license.
We need approval from the, in order to continue our process for it. So this would be the first step in the process of getting a license, is approval from the board.
Be authorizing you to sign their application.
Correct. Andy?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I worked EMS standby at many of your concerts, and I have not observed any issues with alcohol related incidents. The concerts that I were at, and I don't recall anything for radio traffic either that were related to alcohol related incidents.
Judy?
I've attended several concerts and have had no issues. I have no questions and no problems.
Sherry?
I have no problem with it. Like Dave said, it's a pretty much upscale bunch that usually attend the concerts down there. And I've never had any trouble, except there's a lot of traffic, but we know the back roads. So.
Yes, we do. Paul?
Again, Dave, I apologize for spilling the beer on you. I will say that I went to the first venue because it was VIP at first, that area. And then you open it up, and I have to say, I was quite impressed with the way you guys run it. And it's a beautiful spot. And it seems a good enhancement, and cutting it off a bit early is really wise because you want to move people out. It's very nice job.
Very good. You've heard my comments. I don't believe I should reiterate them, other than I agree with what was stated in the positive light. So at this point in time,
Marv, I'll make a motion that we authorize the supervisor to sign the application for the Interlochen Center for the Arts to apply for the Resort Economic Development License.
Oh, second.
Ooh, that was in unison. It's like stereo.
yeah. Good thing my left ear is a little better. Motion by Merrick, supported by Kramer, to authorize the township supervisor to sign the application for ICA to pursue a resort economic development license. Any discussion?
That's all you guys need from us, right, at this point?
I believe so, yeah.
I want to make sure we don't miss any step in here that we
You
need
need a
to.
copy of the minutes too.
Yes. So I'd like to have a roll call on this, please.
Merrick,
Yes.
Biondo,
Is this for the resolution she's speaking of?
For me to authorize the signing of the
signing of
application,
the application.
and they'll bring the resolution back,
Back to
filled out.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yeah.
Biganowski.
Yes.
Kramer, yes. West.
Yes.
And Radke.
Yes, motion carried. Good luck in your endeavors. Take care. Next item.
Can you let us know who's coming this year yet? It'll be a secret. We'll let the world know through YouTube, I promise.
Okay, the next item is Budget Amendment Resolution 01092024.3. Let me get to that particular page there.
For the roof.
Yep.
This is this year's, well, we're still in our fiscal year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
happened was, the board had authorized this, but it was after we had worked on the budget. So therefore, the money is there to do the project, but we never made it official to move it into the right budget center. So this is correcting that budget center as we move forward and get ready for the roof and the payment center.
Any questions of position? If not, I would entertain a motion to.
So moved, 01092024.2.
Second,
We have a motion by Biondo, supported by West, to adopt budget amendment resolution number 01092024.2.
And I'm sorry, I forgot the amount. I posted it up already. Was it
74,000.
74, yes.
do you have them, do they have us on a schedule yet?
Yes.
April 8th,
Oh,
I
that's
believe,
good.
April 18th. So, yes,
December will be done.
yes. Any questions, discussions? If not, please do a roll call.
Biondo.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Kramer, yes. Biganowski.
Yep.
Merrick.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
And Radke.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. Next item is the addition of adding Mary Jo as a signer on at Huntington Bank.
Make a motion that we add Mary Jo Park as a signer at Huntington Bank and remove Christina Lenz.
Second,
We have a motion by Merrick, supported by West, to authorize Mary Jo as a signer at Huntington National Bank and to remove Christina Lenz. Any discussion? We better do a roll call just for the record.
McDonald.
Yeah.
West.
yes.
Merrick.
Yes.
Biondo.
Yes.
Biganowski.
Yes.
Kramer, yes. And Radke.
Yes. Resolution considered adopted. Thank you. Next item under the agenda that I have in front of me is discussion. Is there any more discussion? I think we probably want to talk about the nuisance ordinance opportunity for discussion.
I think we should set a date for the meeting. Personally.
We don't have the attorney's input at this point when he's available. So
Let's do that Survey Monkey thing once we have a draft.
I think that would be a good way is to do a survey on that and make sure that we publish it on our website and on our Facebook pages to make
And
those.
Gasky Farms.
And Casky will make sure we get it out for us, I'm sure.
Thank you.
So that the public is able to hear when we're doing this. I feel bad that we didn't have a better discussion this evening on this, for all those who did come out, but I think it's important that we,
Do so.
yes.
Very good.
And thank you all for coming out. It's not a nice night at all. But we do appreciate it. And come to all of our meetings. We like it.
They're all good.
Being here.
That I expect to hear a lot more, sir.
So with that being said, any other discussion?
A regular meeting before passing, in case it turns into an afternoon meeting when.
Yeah, no, I would not want to adopt an ordinance outside of our regularly scheduled meeting. We have a routine down in that regards there, the expectations are there, but to have a
Workshop.
workshop of sorts, yes.
And it may be a couple of workshops.
Yeah.
How the discussion.
We might hold a little town hall meeting per se, for those that can't attend after work, after school.
We need to be respectful of those who work so that they are able to attend and voice their opinions.
And I do encourage any residents who are watching at home or here to reach out to us, either come into the office and talk to us, let us know your concerns. Or send us an email, probably the best way, so we got a hard copy of what you want. And we can then take that into consideration as well while we're preparing for our study session. If we hear it here at the meeting or here at the study session, we don't have time to look into your recommendation.
So with that being said, we will go forth and put out a poll request for dates, times, and we'll do our best to accommodate that, those times, or whatever we can do to get that going. I'm a little depressed because Judy said we'd be done by 7:30. I was off by 15 minutes. We're not done yet. We're not done yet, yes.
Just for everybody that's here too, you know, make sure you watch our Facebook page, make sure you go to the website. Because that's where we put a lot of our information. That's where you're gonna see the dates, you're gonna see the agendas, that kind of thing. So kind of keep your eye open for that too. That's where we will communicate with you.
That being said, with no more discussion, any correspondence? Seeing none, here's another opportunity for public comment. The same rules apply. I would ask that you come forward to the podium, state your name, address of residence, and limit your comments to 3 minutes and direct it towards the chair of the board.
My name is Michelle Emis and I reside at 5133 Bush Road. I just have a question. I'm one of those that stumbled on this through a Facebook post that I don't even quite honestly know how I saw. But going forward, is that the only way that residents are made aware of issues that pertain so directly to our properties? Is through your website?
Well,
or
that and
Facebook
attending
page?
the monthly board meeting, because a lot of it is discussed at the board meeting. We'll discuss it at several board meetings before we actually bring it to a vote. So, and we do put, you know, our minutes are on the website, so you can read every month's minutes are on there.
Okay.
We do try to share or post things on the social media because a lot of people like social media. I mean, it got all of your attention tonight.
Right.
But most, you know, the best way to keep informed is to attend our board meetings monthly.
Okay, because tonight was the first chance I really had to review this, and in my opinion, just glancing through while I was present here at the meeting, the definitions look a little sketch or like, there should be more clarification, in my opinion, of just exactly what boats or vehicle, you know, and then I would just kind of question who's going to enforce this? How will it be enforced? How will the property owner be made aware that there's an issue even? Before we get to the point that's got everybody so fired up about fines and liens on property. So that's something going forward that we can communicate by email, just kind of an outline of what concerns are.
I would suggest, go
Okay.
through and each item that you have, and you can email, I mean, all of us, our emails are on the website.
Okay.
And you can go ahead and, you know, give us a list of what your concerns
It just
are.
seems like a lot of it is open to interpretation. And that makes me a little uncomfortable with, you know, whose opinion is going to dictate what happens to whatever it is that's in question. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so if you have, concerns or complaints, please feel free to reach out to Judy. If you have some kudos, I can give you my email.
He likes fudge too.
Yeah. Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Scott Richards, 11802 Fred Mar. I'm glad this meeting was tonight instead of last night. And second, I'm looking for people to run for school board at TCAPS. We need good, qualified people to run for school board. My phone number is 231-499-5806. Thank you.
What happened to the board here a couple, 3 years ago? They were running as a group because they were gonna take it over. What's happened with?
Well, we
One
just
got in.
Well,
we got one. We got one. But we definitely need, there's 3 candidates that can, if we get 3 candidates this year, we can flip it. And it's very important because our children are going to be in charge of us one day. And it starts in school. And it really does. And I'm glad you guys changed to Tuesday night, that I could come to this meeting and not miss the school board meeting. Thank you very much.
Is there any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Ryan Matuzak, 11541 US 31. I think that this is a pretty productive meeting. I want to thank you for the time and the effort you put in. I am, however, going to cover some details. So nuisance ordinance. The whole spirit of what's going on here is not in the spirit of Northern Michigan nor the community that I'm part of. And it doesn't appear to be part of what you people think. I think this came from somewhere else, some of the context of what we're seeing here. There's a few things that I would like to point out that are questionable. How this came to be and how we got to this point is questionable. I think that there's conflict of interest at some point in here if this were looked into deeply. The public involvement in the front end of this, because of how big of a topic it really is, was lackluster to say the least. Now, when we look at we've got cats and dogs involved in a nuisance thing. That's an animal thing that needs to be separated. We talked about that. But we also didn't talk about some other issues that have been brought up by some of the members of this community, such as squatters, the possibility of tent cities, homeless encampments, unauthorized tent cities, dwellings, no sewers, and outdoor defecation by these people that are moving into these areas. Some of you have seen it, some of you know about it. I would say that in terms of nuisance, that you should consider that as part of what's going on, because the nuisances that those particular types of situations put forth into our community are not what we're about here. So if we're going to look at this, let's make it a nuisance what a nuisance is. Keep the dogs and cats and the sounds maybe separated. And again, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Mr. Caskey Jr.?
Highway 31. I brought up in October that I asked for a public hearing on this issue. Here we are kicking the can down the road again. What, another 3 months? What are we doing? Did I not say the magic words? What do I need to ask for? How do I need to ask for it? Look back in the minutes. I'm sure you can find it. I don't know why we're wasting our time with this. Thank you.
Any other member of the public wish to speak? Seeing none, the next item on our agenda would be adjournment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting at 7:37 PM.
So moved.
We have a motion by Biondo, supported by Donald, to adjourn this meeting. No discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
No.
Meeting adjourned.